Hello, everyone. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson College Office of Public Relations, and this is The View from the Hill, the podcast of Lindsey Wilson College. Every week during the academic year, The View from the Hill features conversations with some of the people who help create the dynamic living, learning environment that serves the educational needs of every Lindsey Wilson student every day. In this 23rd and final edition of the 2025 View from the Hill podcast, we'll look back on a very successful year in Blue Raider athletics. It was another banner year for Lindsey Wilson College athletics in 2024-2025, and I mean that literally, because in May, the Lindsey Wilson men's golf team, led by Coach Chris Butler, won an NAIA national title, the 20th Big Red national title banner in Blue Raider history. There were also individual national titles in swimming and track and field, several conference championships, as well as a host of Blue Raiders who were named Freshman of the Year and Player of the Year in the Mid-South Conference. It all added up to a top 10 national finish for Lindsey Wilson athletics. Overall, the Blue Raider program, which is loaded with talented young coaches, finished 8th nationally and 2nd among Mid-South Conference schools in the final Learfield Directors Cup standings of the 2024-2025 school year. Presented annually by the National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics, the award is given to schools in the NCAA's 3 divisions and in the NAIA that accumulate the most points throughout the school year. Points are awarded based on how a school finishes in 13 sports during their national championships. To finish off this podcast season, we'll take a look back on 2024-2025 Blue Raider athletics with Lindsey Wilson Athletic Director Willis Puller and Associate Athletics Director Chris Wells. Willis says that 2024-25 was a memorable one for many reasons, starting with the national title won by the men's golf team.
It was a great year in a lot of ways. I think getting a big red banner back in Biggers was something that I was hopeful that we would do. Last one was our football championship in the spring of 21. And, Coach Butler has done a great job with our golf programs. And he's a young alum. And, if you look at our coaching staff, I like to hire Lindsey grads and people that I know and have done great work for us in the past, and he certainly has. So he's a great young and up and coming coach. And I think we've hired, I think we took a little bit of a dip with our performances in the past couple of years. We've had some transition in some of our programs with coaching, and we've been able to I think hire some good young coaches that are you have an opportunity to help develop them, support them, and then kind of see where they rise and fall on the merits of their work. And I think the young coaches that we've hired, I think like a coach Thompson, Anthony Thompson, in our track program was another. Did so much for our track program this year with 2 individual national champions. I was lucky enough to be out there to see that, and you can just see the excitement and enthusiasm with our athletes, and under his leadership, I think that program has just unlimited potential. And you look at Coach Callum Pilgrim as well, who's a young coach, and that program was making a little bit of noise at the conference tournament there and hoping to try and get a bid into the national tournament, but unfortunately the weather kind of derailed that plan. And there's some new programs that we started. We started women's wrestling this year. Coach Dodgens, another young coach, did a great job with that program, and not only enrolling over 30 plus student athletes this year for a first year program, which was great. We were very competitive as well, ranked in the top 10 most of the year. And I believe we had 11 student athletes qualify for the national tournament. I was lucky enough to be out there at that that one too. So just another example of, getting a great start off a new program. And so I think if you look throughout our program offerings and what I'll go back to the fall, our men's soccer team, which is always competitive in the top of the league, getting back to the final site at the national tournament. I could pick a lot of different highlights. Another coach, I'm sorry, that just keep coming to mind, Eric Bernabeu, with our tennis programs. He was not a Lindsey grad, but familiar with Lindsey Wilson and playing in the Mid-South. But boy, he has done just a great job with our tennis programs. I got to watch them at the national tournament and with the women's team making the semifinal. And unfortunately, the men's team did not make the quarterfinal like what we were seeded to do, but a great group of guys and they got a tough draw there. But he is he's a great leader for that group, and we continue to get great results from that team as well. So, I mean, I can think of a lot of positive things that happened this year. There's, I think, a lot of momentum going forward. So really proud of our coaches and our student athletes and the things we accomplished this year.
Chris, Willis talked about bringing back the 20th Big Red in the history of Lindsey Wilson athletics, but there were also a lot of individual national titles in 2024, 2025.
Yeah, if you add them all up, we had 14 individual national titles. When you start with cycling at the very beginning of the year with indoor track, and Mateo Moraes, who was ultimately ended up being our male student athlete of the year, he won. He actually repeated as a national champion in that one. And then you come all the way back to men's track and field outdoor. We had two jumpers who won national championships in the long jump and triple jump. Probably I guess the most accomplished student athlete that maybe we've ever had on the women's side is Micah Boersman. She won 3 national titles and was swimmer of the year in the NAIA at the swimming national championships. Kristen DeGood, she won a couple of national championships. We had our very first relay team ever at women's swimming win a national championship. So, you just look at those, and then archery had a few national championships. So we really, really did a really good job of competing, not only at team, as Willis mentioned, with men's golf and swimming and others, but our individuals really stepped up and performed well at national championships as well.
You mentioned Micah there, one of the, as you said, greatest athletes in the history of Lindsey Wilson College athletics. That's certainly saying a lot, but wow, what a career.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you look at her journey. I mean, she was here as a freshman, went to Division I. She had such a good experience here and not so much there, and transferred back here. I think that says a lot about Lindsey Wilson athletics. I think it says a lot about our head coach, Alicia Chemnitz, and the program in general. And the fact that she came back and then just continued where she actually built on what she did her freshman year. Just amazing. She won national titles as a senior and then this past year as a grad student. So just incredible career. She's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt, when she's eligible for that. But I mean, it's going to be tough. You'd have to look deep into the archives to see if you can find a more accomplished student athlete. And when I say that, I mean student athlete, because she's a phenomenal student as well. Her GPA is off the charts. And so and Willis can attest to this, and anyone who knows Micah, she's an even better person. I mean, she does not, have the big head when it comes to the fact that she's a great swimmer, and she's just a great person. And that she's probably one of there's so many student athletes that move on from Lindsey Wilson and do great things. I don't doubt for a second that she's going to be one of them, but there's so many student athletes that move on. We're like, oh, can we get her for one more year? She's one of those people, not because of what she does in the pool, but just everything that she does on our campus. She's phenomenal.
Had 7 freshmen named Freshman of the Year in Lindsey Wilson athletics. 8 Lindsey Wilson athletes were named Mid-South Conference Player of the Year. That certainly bodes well for the future of Lindsey Wilson athletics.
It sure does. And that's not a small accomplishment in our conference. I mean, the Mid-South is, I would put it up against any conference in America, top to bottom. Now, are there better tennis programs than what we have in the Mid-South Conference? Sure, there are, because we didn't win a national championship. Are there better football? Yes, of course. But from top to bottom, from 1 to 7 in our conference, it's the best out there. I will put up against anyone. And to be the very best student athlete in that conference, or the best freshman in that conference, that says a lot. And, you look at what the future might hold for Lindsey Wilson and for the Mid-South Conference. I think it's off the charts. I'm really excited about it.
And then the other statistic of this year I find just really impressive. 11 coaches were named head coach of the year or assistant coach of the year. That shows to me that there's a really deep and broad bench of quality coaches at Lindsey Wilson.
Yeah, and I think you can, he won't take credit for it, but I think you can look at Willis Pooler for making those hires. And a lot of them are very young. You talked about Chris Butler already, or Eric Burnaboo. Those are the people that are still young in their careers, who are excited to come to work, who are excited to put our student athletes out there in competition. They make sure that they're doing their job in the classroom as well. So, yeah, they're coach of the year mainly from what they do on the court or on the field or in the pool, however they compete. But they do the job with our finances, with our budgets, and there's a lot that goes into being a head coach. And a lot of people think, well, they're just on the sideline, cheering on or in practice. No, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and they're doing a great job of that as well. So we're excited about our crop of coaches.
You're listening to the Lindsey Wilson View from the Hill podcast. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. We're looking back on 2024-2025 Lindsey Wilson Athletics with Lindsey Wilson Athletic Director Willis Pooler and Associate Athletics Director Chris Wells. A reminder that lindseyathletics.com is your official home on the World Wide Web for all things Blue Raider related. Also, be sure to follow Lindsey Wilson Athletics on social media, because they do a great job posting the latest news, results, and scoops about Lindsey Wilson College athletics. Lindsey Wilson athletes were not only successful in competition in 2024-25, as Willis points out, they were also very successful in the classroom, and that's where it was another record-setting year.
Yeah, that's one thing we take a lot of pride in. It's not just all the accomplishments in athletic competition. I firmly believe in student athlete and making sure that we have students here who are focused on getting their degrees and doing well in the classroom. I always say use your athletic ability to get a degree. Don't use academics being in a classroom to play a sport. And our student athletes certainly had a fantastic year this year. We had, of our 27 teams, 24 of them had a 3.0 cumulative GPA or higher, and 24 of those 22 will be NAI scholar teams, which is the 3.0 requirement. The other two were in archery and cycling, and they don't qualify. So to have 24 of your 27 teams have an overall GPA above 3.0, I think is just a fantastic job by those student athletes, and you got to give the coaches credit. I expect coaches to make sure their students are doing well in the classroom, that they're monitoring grades, that they're doing things to make sure the kids are successful. And they are certainly doing that. I think we also had I believe this is an all-time record, but a 3.30 overall varsity GPA for the 24-25 academic year, which is, I just think, an outstanding statistic. We were a 3.16 the year before, so up to 3.30 from a 3.16. And of our student athletes, 46 of those had a 4.0 GPA for the year, and 279 actually had a 3.5 GPA or higher. So we always want to talk about, what's going on in competition and those trophies that we win and who gets recognized. But, these are really the most important statistics, is how are you doing in the classroom? Just getting by. Are you doing the absolutely best you can do, and moving towards the ultimate goal, which is graduation? So I'm really proud of our student athletes, what they've accomplished this year, and our coaches too, because our coaches are in charge of making sure that our kids are getting it done in the classroom as well as in competition. So a very good year for academics.
And I mentioned a coach likes it when they have a good student on their team, because because they know if they're going to take care of business in the classroom, they're going to do it in sports as well.
I think that's something I've noticed. I think this holds true. You know, if you're great in the swimming pool or on the track, or you just want to be great in every aspect of your life. And so people who are serious about what they do are serious about what they do in everything. And I think that's something you'll see a lot. Some of our best athletes are also some of the best students. So that adds a lot to the campus culture. You know, we just don't bring athletes in here. We bring athletes who are excellent students, excel in the classroom. And I know faculty like that. They want to work with skilled individuals in the classroom. And I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the student athletes that do their best in everything they do.
You mentioned 27 teams at Lindsey Wilson in athletics, intercollegiate athletics. In 25-26, the first year of Lindsey Wilson University, there'll be 28 athletic teams, starting women's flag football.
Yeah, we are really excited about that. You know, that's been a journey. We talk about what programs can we start, and we started women's wrestling last year, and then women's flag football coming up this year, and there are some others on the radar, but this program in particular, you know, it's been several years as a potential sport that we could start, and now is the time to do it. And we got that board approval last fall in October, and I was starting the process of hiring a coach, and Chris Raggart just started emailing me out of the blue trying to be helpful. So he had suggestions, and he wasn't really a candidate for the position at that point. But the more we got into it, the more information he was providing and being helpful. And we started a conversation about, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And Chris had a very successful career as a high school coach down in Florida, and was probably coaching down there 6-7 years. So knows the game, familiar with a lot of where the players are. Almost half of the high school players that play flag football in the United States are in Florida. And so Chris had his finger on the pulse, and it just became evident the more and more we talked. We got him up for an interview, and we were able to hire him here in late November. And he's been working remotely for us. He'll be up here late summer full time, but he's done a fantastic job recruiting our first flag football team. We've got 21 players committed that'll be enrolling in the fall, and I know he's still working on some, so that number could grow. But you know, it's just another sport that, you know, it's another way to add students to our campus who wouldn't even think about Lindsey Wilson, wouldn't get exposed to our mission. They wouldn't even look at us without us offering flag and something that they're interested in. So I just look at it as a great opportunity for us to expand our mission to students that we wouldn't be able to without it. They'll play in Parnell Family Stadium. It's a spring sport. You know, field dimensions are a little bit different. We talked a little bit earlier about first downs, and so it's going to have a little different look to it. But that sport's expanding quite a bit in the NAI. I think it'll be a championship sport here in the next 2 years, I would guess. So we're excited about trying to be competitive in that program right away.
You mentioned Parnell Family Stadium. In the fall, there'll be a new face on the sideline for Blue Raider football, and also be a new face on the sideline in Bigger Sports Center in the fall when volleyball season opens up.
Yeah, we talked about football. We've hired Jay Bright as our new offensive coordinator, and he's had great success. He was at Bethel, was his last stop, and they had explosive offenses. Jay is a graduate of University of the Cumberlands and played in some great teams there. In fact, I believe they went to the national final while Jay was involved in the program. So we're excited about that. A different look on offense. I think from everything I've heard from the spring, we had a good spring. So obviously you have to install and do things differently. already, and glad we've had that semester to do that. So I'm excited about the potential for our offense for next year. And Jay is, if you spend any time with him, just a great person, just has a great attitude, and just a genuinely nice guy. And I have all the confidence in the world that he's going to help us do big things here with our football program. And then Bigger, you mentioned Biggers and Josh Kreiner coming on as our new volleyball coach. And I know Josh has hit the ground running. He is a very enthusiastic young coach. I think he's a tireless worker. He was middle of the road at UNOH in his last program, but I think there's a lot of potential there. I think there were some challenges for him at UNOH, just with limited degrees to offer and some other things of that nature, that he won't have those issues at Lindsey Wilson. And I think the recruiting has gone really well. We had a lot of players that graduated, 9 players graduate, so a lot of work to do there. But coming off a historic season for our volleyball program, and we have a lot of momentum, I think, going into this next year. So he won't shy away from the expectations. I think he's got great rapport with the students. When we brought him in and interviewed him, we had him run a practice, and this spring it's been nothing but positive reviews from our student athletes about how he approaches his job. And I think a lot of the players say he's like a mini Jacob Hepp. Does things a lot like Jacob did for us last year, and that's a successful formula for us. So I'm excited about Josh as well.
I'll ask you all both, what's it going to feel like to see Lindsey Wilson University competing in athletics?
That's a great question. I don't know yet. See, it's exciting. That it's something that has been talked about for years and years and years around here. The name may change, but the goals will not change. What we do on campus is not going to change. There's going to be a U instead of a C after that LW. But I do think it generates excitement. I think it opens up possibilities for us in recruiting. So I don't really see any negatives to it. I only see positives, and looking forward to a lot of firsts for LWU with our programs this year.
I agree with Willis. I think everything basically that we've tried to do over the last several years is we're going to continue, because why change something that's been successful? But it is going to be interesting to hear our cheerleaders on the sideline instead of saying LWC, LWU, and as a broadcaster, when you're used to saying Lindsey Wilson College for how many ever years that I've been doing this, to actually make sure I don't say Lindsey Wilson College, I say Lindsey Wilson University. I think that's one of the things that we'll have to pay attention to. We'll have to tell our PA announcers to make sure, because it's going to inevitably happen for everyone. I mean, it's LWC is just kind of in our DNA, and so we're going to have to change that. I'm incredibly excited about that opportunity. I love the branding that we're doing that will be unveiled on July 1st, and I'm excited about the future with LWU.
And that's going to do it for this 23rd edition of 2025's View from the Hill. That's also going to bring down the curtain on the 2025 edition of View from the Hill. Thanks to everyone who gave their time so generously to talk about their corner of Lindsey Wilson College, which will become Lindsey Wilson University on July 1st. A very big thanks to my co-worker, Shelby Burton. Shelby is Lindsey Wilson's Assistant Director of Public Relations and Media Producer, and she produced every episode of this podcast in 2025. Her editing skills frequently make me and others sound much better than we do. The podcast will now take a much-earned and much-deserved summer break, and when it returns from summer break in late August, it will be the View from the Hill from Lindsey Wilson University. Of course, that big name change will take place on July 1st, so be sure to keep your eye on lindsey.edu as well as the various Lindsey Wilson social media platforms for that momentous celebration on the first day of July. And until our first edition of the 2025-2026 View from the Hill from Lindsey Wilson University, I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson College Office of Public Relations. Thanks so much for listening this year. So long, everybody, and have a nice summer.